The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast with Dotun Adebayo and Tim Vickery.
Yeah, as you can see, I am Tim Vickery, the legendino, here to bring you what we do of a Thursday afternoon, UK time, 4 p.m. Don't worry, Dotun Adebayo, I'll bring you in a second. You can have your
all we are saying is give us an MB.
And we haven't even invited our guest, Stewart Tommy, to come into the conversation yet. So he'll be here with us in a moment. Let me just tell you all, look, on a Thursday, 4 p.m. UK time, what we do here on the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast is what we call our Global Soccer Interactive. It's an opportunity for you to join in the conversation as well. I definitely want you joining in if you can. If you've got a moment or two, if you can take a break from work or whatever else you're up to, then just join us on the usual ways, join in the chat there, and we'll bring you on air, and it'll be good to see you. And if you don't want to come on air, that's fine as well. Just send us a question or two, which we'll answer. And do make sure, please, do make sure that you join us on our WhatsApp group as well, and of course that you subscribe. Now that I've done all of that, Dotun Adebayo, how are you? How is Brazil?
I don't know what accent I'm supposed to be answering in now. So maybe I should just hold Shofton.
Yeah, you could do, but I do a mean Tim Vickery though, don't I, Tommy Stewart? Welcome back.
Good to be here, lads. Yeah, it's been far too long. I'm just checking. You can hear me? My microphone is working.
I can hear you, Major Tom.
Loud and clear. And what a time to bring Tommy back, because we know he's a Manc. We know he's a Manc. Well, when I say a Manc, he's a Salford boy. Did you know what I mean, Tommy? Or did you not like that? Do you know what I mean? There's only one team in Mancland, and you know that.
I've been called a lot worse. Yeah. But also, it's funny this. I went to see. Me and my girlfriend went to Milan at the start of January. It was just like the cheapest place to. A few months earlier, we were just like, let's go away for New Year. And Milan happened to be the cheapest flights. And everyone you speak to, still to this day, and this was still under the tyrannous Ruben Amorim regime. But I went to the San Siro, managed to get tickets to see Inter Milan versus Bologna. First time I've been there, and everyone you speak to, because obviously they hear an English accent and they ask where you're from, and you say Manchester, and they just want to talk about Man United. Like some people over there, like it's their second team still. For some people, it's still. I was speaking to a guy who was cooking pasta for us. He was from Georgia, and I was like, "Do you not support?" He'd lived in Milan for like 15 years, but I said, "Do you not support any of the Milan sides?" He's like, "No, I just support Man United." And he's like wanted to talk about Scholes and Giggs and Beckham, and I needed that boost at that time during a sticky Christmas period for United.
It's like that advert. You've seen that advert that Tim probably hasn't seen. It's for a betting company where you got two guys, on the roof of a car park or whatever, and they're giving it the old, you lot, you're just living on the past, mate. You've seen that advert. You lot just living in the past. And if you think about it, internationally, globally, that's what Manchester United are. Once upon a time, this glamour, the world's glamour team, and with all the tragedy.
I think Tommy's story is just showing how powerful that still is.
That's that narrative.
I remember Bobby Charlton telling a similar story. I think he was in Japan or somewhere, and the United game was in the middle of the night, and he's watching it obviously because he's United. And then United scored a goal, and he could hear these shouts from all over in Japan. And it was a moment when, it really is a global thing that we've created. And that size, I think, is so important because it gives you a kind of safety net, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That size. I mean, had another club, almost all the other clubs in England, been run with the stupidity that United have been run over the last 20 years, they would not be in the Premier League. But United have that safety net because of their size.
Yeah, and I mean, I was flabbergasted in the summer that we could attract players like Brian Mbeumo and Matthias Cunha. Like I know we trade off this nostalgia, and that's why so many of the former players are, you know, all over the media, like doing all the podcasts. And I suppose it's like when I was growing up in the 90s, it was a lot of former Liverpool players. But I still find it quite, as you know, someone who's been a season ticket for a few years, I still find it quite humbling and quite beautiful that United are still this giant. It just reminds me every time I go abroad and I talk to someone about football. I go to Stockholm a lot, Dotun, and it's the same there. It's the same anywhere that you go, really. And I think that's why the Man United job is such a sort of, like, we've tried sort of every method now over the past since Sir Alex Ferguson left, and someone described it. My friend Carl Anker wrote a piece about this whole, United DNA, like what the United way is. And it's such a unquantifiable thing. But then he said, you know it when you see it. And for some reason, under Michael Carrick, like, it feels like that. And I don't want to get carried away. It's only been a couple of games, but it feels like, that goal against City where Bruno Fernandes has the ball deep, it's on a counter attack, and then there's 4 or 5 players just running in front of him. And that, to me, I don't know what it is, but that just feels like Man United to me.
Well, it's so important because on the ethos of the club, I think is a Busby thing, and so often just the idea comes first, and everything emanates from that. And Busby's thinking was very, very clear on this. We represent a grey industrial town. We got to put some colour in this place. It has to be with some swagger and some glamour, which makes you wonder why the club have appointed some of the people that they've appointed in recent years who have nothing to do with that at all. It's like they don't realise what they've got.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I was, I was one of the few. To be fair, I think most match-going fans were, I wouldn't say pro-Amorim, that's the wrong way of saying it, but we're patient. Like, we are generally quite patient, and we'll come on to this in a bit, I'm sure, but like, that's why it surprises me quite a lot, actually, that I get the Spurs thing with Frank, because it feels like Groundhog Day, like last season, except it's the Bizarro Ange, but with the same results, like this whole European being, Jekyll and Hyde being good in Europe. And then,
are you trying to criticise the 4th best team in Europe?
No, I'm not. That's why I find it confusing. But the one that surprised me more is Liverpool with Arne Slot. Like, I know it's not been great, but they're a fan base who really sort of, I've always thought, really get behind their managers. And I find it quite surprising that he's won a Premier League in the first year, and now that's almost been forgotten. I know football fans have an incredibly short memory, but it's really interesting. But yeah, back to Amorim and what it is now with United is, I think when he got sacked, we all just felt exhausted. And after that Brighton game at home, when we got knocked out of the FA Cup, we were just like, not this again. Like I said, with the whole Groundhog Day thing, but it becomes a bit tenuous, and you pay that much money for it, and you're just like, I just want one of these guys to stick. I just want one of them to work. And that's why I was kind of reluctant for us to sack Ruben Amorim. But it's almost like a abusive relationship or a toxic relationship. Like, once you get out of it, you see how bad it is. You're like, and then the goalkeeper takes a easy cross. We score on the counter attack, and it's like they're just putting the bins out, but it just you're applauding it. You're like, oh my God, I didn't realize how bad I had it.
What's Carrick done? What difference? Well, we know the consequences of the difference he's made, but what's he done to get
what
you
difference
like
has he made?
Yeah.
If we can put this in Mancunian terms.
He has not been not dying on an incredibly strange 3 at the back hill that just never, like, I was all for giving, what he did at Sporting Lisbon was incredible, and I was all for innovation, sporting director, sort of United catching up with the modern way of doing things, but it never felt quite right. It never felt quite right playing 3 at the back. And I think even just the visual, like even just seeing that, even just like getting to that match. And to be fair, we played 4 at the back under Darren Fletcher for those couple of games. So I don't know. Michael Carrick is a more experienced manager. So, but I don't know. He just commands respect. You forget well, I think it's easy to forget what an incredible player he was. Like, I think if you put him in Pep's Barcelona team, he could have done as good as, if not a better job than Sergio Busquets. Like, I think he was that good a player, and Pep talks about him in that way. So there's that. I think he commands instant respect. There's obviously the new manager bounce thing, which is a thing. Like it seems to be a thing for most clubs. Like I said about the toxic relationship thing, like the players feel, you know, they're out of the shackles and they feel liberated. But I think the very basic thing is the formation and playing people, you know, not putting square pegs in round holes. It's, you know, when you get down to the fundamentals, football's a simple game and it's a lot easier said than done. But, you know, it gets the whole crowd going when you see that. When you come to Old Trafford versus Manchester City and you see Diallo just flying down the right, you see Dorgu, who's been a revelation recently, flying down the left as a flying winger, and defending together, running together. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how long it'll last, but it feels right at the moment.
Against City and Tommy Stewart, you will know, writes for Men in Blazers, which covers everything to do with football, everything. But he's also a Man United fan. So take off your professional hat for a moment or two. I think if you were watching that Man City match, the first thing and maybe it's because Man City were slightly off the pace. I'm not making excuses for them at all. But one thing that I noticed was Man United was first to every ball. I haven't seen Man United play like that so aggressively and on the front foot for goodness knows how long. If I haven't seen it, you haven't seen it either, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think my dad said, which was, he's quite a stoic man. You know, he's in his 70s, and he said he's not woke up like the next day. He said he woke up on Sunday. He started going in the Busby era in well, you know, like I think his first games would have been in the 60s, Best Law and Charlton and all that. And he said he can't remember the last time. Like he said, it must be over a decade that he's woken up feeling good, even on the Sunday, like feeling, you know, still excited about watching Man United play. And that's exactly how it felt. And I think it is as much that as anything else, to be honest. Like just the running and I think it's true of any football club that the crowd, and you saw this at the Emirates on Sunday, but you know the other way around, that the crowd and the team bounce off each other. They need each other. And at Arsenal, the crowd sounded nervous on Sunday, and I think that spilled over onto the pitch, didn't it? Like with how they gave away the first goal. So I think that is, it feels like, it feels like such a basic, and this is why I'm always such a big defender of Bruno Fernandes, because I know through every manager he's had and through how sort of erratic and sporadically good and bad our performances have been since he's been at the club, which I think has been 6 years now, he's always given it 100%. He's never stopped running, and a lot of those players have. And it shouldn't be a surprise. We shouldn't really be applauding them that they were first to every ball. But again, the whole toxic relationship thing, you're like, oh, this is what it can be. This is how football can be. This is how football should be. This is how football used to be at Man United. So it's doing the basics, but I don't know. I wish I had the answers as to where it came from. Like I had heard Andy Mitten was saying in the week before the game, before that City game, that the mood was like particularly good in training, that it was the best it's been in years, like the best it's been in a long time. Because I can't imagine it was much of a party under Eric Ten Hag either. So there's that, you know, if the players feel good, they want to work.
It's the theory of tight boots, as outlined by the great Brazilian author Machado de Assis. If you've got tight boots, you want to feel good, just take them off.
Yeah.
It feels fantastic.
Yeah,
now that feeling is just normal But because you've had these tight boots on before, it feels absolutely great, So you've taken the tight boots off.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And we'll see how long it lasts, because obviously I'll be there on Sunday in the Stratford end, and it's very easy to get carried away. And there is obviously the massive question over this whole conversation about, hypothetically we get fourth, even third. There is some nonsensical but fantastical talk of a title charge because Man United have recovered 12 points before at this point in the season. Kevin Keegan's Newcastle. I'm referring to you, but I don't think we're quite. I don't think we're quite that team with that manager.
I would love it. Honestly, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. No.
Me too. Me too.
In tribute to the great Kevin Keegan. Let's not forget he's fighting a difficult illness at the moment. But we would all love it. If you're going to play football like that every week, I mean, please bring it on. I'm not saying that it's mathematically out of the question, because it's not, of you winning the title or anything. But when you lot took on Arsenal and beat them, did your noisy neighbours thank you for it? Because you did them lot a favour, which must hurt.
Yeah, but well, the thing is, I'm probably not one of these, but there are a contingent of Man United fans, and maybe it's more the Cockney Reds, maybe it's more the online fans. And I do get it.
Their own section in the stadium. We are the Cockney Reds. We are the Cockney
Reds. Yeah, next to the away fans. No, all are welcome. All are welcome. But
of course, especially those who have travelled from overseas.
Yeah,
they pay a good wage for it. After all, they do.
Yeah. But there's a large proportion of people, and I think it's maybe just because of the nature of sort of Arsenal fans and how, and I mean, Tim will obviously be one of these people, but he's not a Manc. But there's a large proportion of even United fans who would rather City win the title than Arsenal. I think a lot of United fans think they're going to get all the charges, they're going to get these titles ripped off them. It doesn't really mean that much. Like, the parades and this, I'm speaking objectively here, but the parades that they have when they do win a title in Manchester are pathetic. Like, no one's showing up to them. Like, it doesn't really feel like it feels like a bit of a, they'll celebrate for one day and then it's kind of over if City win the title. And it is very funny. The whole Arsenal thing and the whole drought and the whole perennial bridesmaid thing is a very funny thing if you're a football fan, I suppose. But no, I would never want to give Man City a title. No way.
So you would prefer the title going to Arsenal than Manchester City?
Just about, but I mean it's slightly lesser of two evils. Although the football fan in me doesn't want this, this Arsenal team anywhere near a Premier League trophy, because it's. I mean, 20 goals from corners is not exactly my idea of good football, to be honest. I find the way, and it's obviously sort of permeated throughout the rest of the Premier League, hasn't it? Like, yes, I think the long throws thing, and everyone's very reactive. And I thought it was really interesting what Anthony Gordon was saying the other day in his Champions League press conference about how the Premier League's more basketball, it's more end-to-end, it's more physical, whereas the Champions League is more like sort of traditional football. And which is why the way United have been playing against these, the two best sides in the league has been really refreshing. I think even for some neutrals who were traumatized by Man United in their childhood in the 90s, I think for most people it's been refreshing to see a side just playing this sort of, I wouldn't even call it gung-ho, because we've been very defensively organised, but this sort of brave type of football, this like 100% sort of all-in type of football, which, not saying Arsenal aren't that and their defence is excellent, but it's not my idea of what I would want to watch. Or
in the interests of BBC balance, I think it's only fair to ask you if you've yet received Noel Gallagher's offer for your stadium.
What did he say?
Well, you talked about their parade. What he said, because everybody knows that Oasis made gazillions on their world tour last year. He's now got a bit of spare change in his pocket, and he said, "Look, he's going to buy up the stadium. And he's going to turn it into a car park." You lot love each other.
How'd you say car park in broad Mancunian?
Car park.
Car park. Car park.
But apart from that,
I don't mean that. He likes my band, so I don't mean that. I was going to
say, in the interest of BSN lack of balance, he can fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. But let's talk about Tottenham, because Tottenham, I mean, quite apart from Arsenal, still in the driver's seat for the title. Tottenham, their North London neighbours. What's the view from where you are? And I know Manx have got a sense of humour, so you must be enjoying the soap opera that is, or the sitcom that is Tottenham Hotspur. But should they stick or twist with Thomas Frank?
I was really thinking about this before when Mark sent out the email, and I was writing about Tottenham the other day, and I was just looking up their top goal scorers and note, because obviously Van der Ven and Romero both scored at the weekend and both scored brilliant goals, and then I realised that they were the joint second top goal scorers with 4 each, which is, but then it's strange, isn't it? Because they are arguably, and I'd be more interested to hear what Tim thinks about all this, but they're arguably Spurs' best players, but then they're still losing matches. So it's an interesting one. I don't know, because I said it earlier, and it's like the way I would put it is that it's Ange last season, but the opposite style of football, but the same results, this terrible Premier League performance, and then just looking like, Jekyll and Hyde, in Europe. So I don't really understand it, but I guess maybe it goes back to the Anthony Gordon thing of the whole completely different style of football, and maybe, but then Spurs have a lot of physical players, so I'm not sure. But I think now, and I've changed my mind on this genuinely today when I really had a good think about it. I thought it was incredibly unfair that Spurs fans wanted Frank out, and I think it's hard because he seems a nice guy and blah blah blah, and he did an incredible job at Brentford. But then going back to Amorim and this whole toxic relationship thing, and where we are now, I would have much rather us have got rid of him earlier. I would have much rather us just given it, seen how bad it was. Rather than start this season with him, and let him. Not that the signings were bad, and a lot of that was done by the recruitment team or Ineos or whoever, but we were still signing players for for his system. And I know Thomas Frank is probably a more flexible manager than Ruben Amorim, but I think at this point, especially when you've lost the fans to this extent, then it feels like there's no way back. But what do you think, Tim?
I think there's such a parallel, because we're supposed to be the glamour team of the South, and you're the glamour team of the North, and there's not a lot of glamour there for a long time. The distant difference, I think, with Amorim is you're committing, as you're saying, you're committing to a system of play that I don't think United should have been committing to. And you're right. I think with Frank, there's more flexibility there. I don't see how they can sack him while they're the 4th best team in Europe. Yeah. Meaning that, there's obviously there's flippancy in that, but while the European adventure is still going, and if that ends soon, then I think he becomes extremely vulnerable. But while that momentum is rolling, keep it rolling. Would he be my choice long term? He most certainly would not. I don't think it's a particularly good squad. Really don't think it is. And part of this is, it's a club that makes a profit. No, there aren't many clubs that make a profit. That's not why most of the people who are involved with football are involved with football. So the wages are low, and that puts and hence the fact that the best players are the centre backs. Not the glamour players, the kind of players that Tottenham have always had and don't have. You're expecting a fit again James Maddison to be one of those. And
when is he
very
going to
good
be
player.
fit? When is he going to be fit again?
even if he is fit and 100% firing, he's still James Maddison. He's not one of the world's best. No. And that's the kind of thing that we were raised on, with a Hoddle and a Diles and a Gascoigne and so on in those positions. So I don't think it's easy for any coach. And one obvious conclusion, just looking at the Champions League table, is the idiocy of the people running many of these clubs, including Tottenham, for wanting a Super League when they're already part of a Super League. And look at it. And if Tottenham can be this mediocre and the fourth best club in Europe, and obviously that's a false position, it has something to do with the fixtures, why would you want to break that? Why would you want to break it and do a favour to Real Madrid? Just looking at that Champions League table with those Premier League sides all at the top, you're thinking, what on earth were you thinking of? I'd like to know where they got the notion to rock the boat in that way when the boat is sailing so well. The Hughes Corporation know more about running a football club than they do. And how on earth can you have a competitive advantage that the Premier League gives you and decide, all right, we'll throw it away and go in with Perez and Real Madrid? That really is shocking to me, looking at that Champions League table.
Yeah, it does feel like a soft launch for the Super League as well, doesn't it? But then I really thought I would despise this format. But then watching Mourinho, who is someone who, as a Man United fan, I am traumatized by, but watching him running down the touchline with a ball boy last night did kind of make me think maybe this format isn't so bad. But yeah, you're completely right. What was it? Five out of 8 teams, 5 out of the automatic qualifiers of Premier League. It's insane.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's the dominance, isn't it? And by the way, from my position in North London, I've heard a lot of Spurs fans say exactly that phrase. Thomas Frank's a nice guy, but Thomas Frank's a nice guy, but I'm not sure there is a huge amount of sentiment for nice guys coaching teams anymore in the Football League. I mean, look at Arne Slot.
It's a tough one, that, isn't it? Because the old kind of Sergeant Major, the old, could Ferguson get away with? I know Ferguson was a very, very flexible figure, very, very flexible, very, very intelligent, and knew how to bend with the times. But classic era Ferguson, the hairdryer and the cups of tea thrown all over the place. Can you still get away with that?
No way. There's no way, is there? Like, what managers are like? I think the only manager really like that in the Premier League. Well, no, I suppose there's 2, but Pep has a lot of help. Pep has a lot of people above him, but Unai Emery is maybe a bit of a throwback in the sense of, like, he seems to be the master of that club. He seems to be in control of pretty much everything. Like, if he says, go and buy my local Spanish club from the town I grew up in, then Aston Villa will go and buy the local Spanish club from the town he grew up in. So, but yeah, in terms of the Fergie thing, I think it's untenable. But I think Liverpool's a really interesting one as well, because the fans have been booing Arne Slot, and I just think it's such it's what, 7-8 months ago since he won the Premier League title, and it's just, and also I want something I did write down before this recording was that what did I say? I think it was on our season preview. I think it was at the start of the season about Virgil van Dijk. I think I said it was he was looking leggy in pre-season and in the Community Shield.
It's insane that they didn't reinforce
I think you said that.
They
I remember that.
Yeah, they bought strikers they don't need in the summer, and they didn't reinforce. And there's an Ecuadorian from Bruges or Brugge, depending on whether one is a Fleming or a Walloon, I'm led to understand. Joel Ordonez. And I don't understand why he's not there already. I just don't understand it. I mean, I thought he was going to join in the summer. And then 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Ecuadorian press was saying it's a done deal. All that's missing is his signature. And it still hasn't been done. Maybe Bruges stroke Brugge, depending on whether one is a Fleming or a Walloon. Maybe they were holding out for the Champions League games last night to see what would happen then. But you'd think that Liverpool's money would talk. Why they were going around buying expensive forwards when what they really needed was reinforcements in the defensive positions, and how much of that is down to Slot and how much of that is down to the club hierarchy. Because if it isn't Slot, if that is the fault entirely of the club hierarchy, it's a bit hard blaming Arnie for that, isn't it?
Yeah, and to let Mark Gay as well slip through their fingers and then see him go to Manchester City when that was, I think I remember saying at the time that I just found it crazy that they were so set on signing Isaac when they just signed Ekitike, and they probably could have got the Gay deal through the door on the final day or the final couple of days of the transfer window had they focused on that rather than just being so fully all in on Alexander Isaac. And it's like sort of, it's buying ornaments and new furniture without actually, securing the foundations of the house, isn't it?
Yeah, talking of the transfer window, before we...
Do you think they did an Isaac rather than an Alexander Isaac? Do you think they did an Isaac Hayes and they shafted themselves?
Feel free to take Isaac Hayes' greatest tune in vain if you so wish. I'm not going anywhere near that because he's a bad... What was he? Is he?
Yeah, would you say that Cat Shaft was a bad mother? Hush your mouth.
I would say so. You're the one who's going to be dealing with him, not me. No, as you mentioned, the transfer window, though, as it comes to a close, this January transfer window, anything caught your eye? Is there anybody sitting there waiting still to be transferred before it comes to an end? And what's been the best deal so far?
I think the best deal so far is probably the one I was just talking about. It's probably Mark Gay to Man City, and you saw against Man United how much they needed him. I think Semenyo as well, and that was part of the reason Ruben Amorim was throwing his toys out the pram, which I find crazy because, as a footballer, you can't really blame him for choosing at that point in time, at this point in time, for choosing a team who's, still chasing 4 trophies rather than Man United who are playing once a week. So, Man City have done good business, but they will be with complete impunity as usual, but we'll see. We're still waiting on that. No, I'm just waiting for Man United to sign Cole Palmer, and then all will be good.
Well, yeah, good for you. Yeah, that's up there, but it's not going to happen immediately. It does look like, unless they're going to put a surprise.
I think it will one day, though. I do think it will one day. I think he wants it, doesn't he? He's like, there's so many pictures of him in his United
after the
shirts.
way that City treated him. Yeah, he's going to want revenge, isn't he, at some point? Mate, we're going to lose you now. Thank you very much. And you are obviously our oracle, Tommy, because you predicted, that Liverpool would go down the Swanee before the end of the season. We'll see whether Arne Slot survives or not. For now, mate, and people obviously can catch up with you at Men in Blazers and otherwise, yeah?
Yeah, thanks for having us. And I think the whole predicting Liverpool's slump was more... it was more manifesting. I think people thought about a lot these days.
Mate, you're not going to win University Challenge for it. No. I wasn't going to that level. I was just saying, well done, mate. You didn't get it wrong. This is more like a countdown tonight. Anyway, thanks,
guys.
So yeah. Okay, and of course, as one of our football experts leads, we'll bring another one in. Joel Sked, who's the editor of the Hearts Standard, which is the oracle, of course, of Hearts of Midlothian. Joel, great to have you with us.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. What's going on at Hearts, mate? This has been a season unlike any other.
It has. It's been a very surreal season. I don't think anyone saw coming, but just enjoying the ride and getting a wee bit more nervous with each passing week.
Yeah, and they seem to be looking stronger with each passing week. You're waiting for them to falter, or you're waiting for Celtic and the dreaded Rangers to come back at you, but they've had problems of their own, of course, and Hearts just seem to be swimming along.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is a lot of people have looked at Celtic and Rangers and talked about how they have been so poor that's allowed Hearts to do what they've been doing. However, the form that Hearts have put together would have them in a title race most years anyway, and it's been a case where Hearts have, in 5 games against Old Firm, not been beaten once, won 4 games, drew 1, which was on Sunday against Celtic, which probably should have won. They had the chances to win it. So yeah, it's been a madcap season in Scottish football so far, and obviously Hearts are probably the most interesting aspect of it, just because everyone outside of Scotland knows it's just been Celtic and Rangers for the last 40 years. Well, mostly Celtic for the last 15 and 20 as well. So it's been a nice change of pace.
And look, without sounding patronising, and I don't mean to be at all, but you will know that most of us probably don't follow Scottish football as closely as we should. So I was just saying that to assure you can bring in even the most obvious anecdotes, and please share them with us. And certainly, if you want to reference any football matches that we may have missed along the way as well. But you said it's, we'll come on to the ownership very shortly, because that's an important thing for our conversation too. You know, when we compare it to ownerships elsewhere, Manchester United notwithstanding a moment or two ago. But when you said that it's been a season like no other in the Scottish Prem, how has it been felt, regarded, looked upon by the wider footballing community and maybe beyond that?
It's been so within Scottish football. I think there's been so much more interest, and I wrote something yesterday where Hearts have been on TV so much on Sky Sports or Premier Sports, who are the two broadcast holders, probably been more than they have been over the last number of seasons. I think out of the last 12 fixtures, so going back to December, it's the start of December, and then going up until the middle of February, out of 12 games, Hearts will be on TV for 10 of them, just because there's just so much interest from Sky Sports, from Premier Sports, to see what Hearts are doing in this title race. And then in the wider scale, where there's been a lot more interest, a lot more people coming from abroad or down south, coming up to games, to speaking to people, getting an idea of what's going on. There's obviously been a number of players signed from around Europe, around the world. There's, for example, we've signed a Kazakh international. He arrived in January. There was at the game at the weekend, there was a couple of Kazakh journalists there. There's been so much interest in Claudio Braga, who is a Portuguese forward, but was signed from the second tier of Norway. So there's been loads of interest both within the country and out with not just what's going on, but why it's happening and how it's happening.
Is there anything of the spirit of 1914 about this?
I would say they're two very, very different times, because obviously 1914 there was a lot of Hearts players went and fought in the war and end up not winning the league. So this has been more just been more of a surprise, almost a surprise. However, at the same time, when you talk about spirit, that's probably been the one thing, probably to me, like the one real quality that's gone through this team, and the reason why they're doing so well is the dressing room, the spirit, the togetherness of the team that's come down from the manager who was appointed in the summer, Derek McInnes. And you look at it with Hearts have come from behind 7 times this season. I think it's 7 times to earn 9 points. There've been a number of late winners, and that has been probably the biggest quality. Even the fact that it's quite a multicultural squad, and it's quite a big squad. I think there's at times there's been 32 players within the squad. I think at the moment it's 30, 31. But despite the size, despite everything, it's a really close-knit dressing room, and that's been one of the key qualities of the season so far.
See, that is exactly what I meant by the spirit of 1914, because remarkable story. I mean, I think you somewhat undersold it there, but remarkable story that will never, thankfully, be repeated. But for most of the squad, if not all of the squad, deciding on the same day, publicly at least, to go and enlist in the army to defend their country.
Does that? forgive my ignorance with this question, but obviously we see Scottish football through an old firm kind of prism. And to what extent is Hearts and Hibs the old firm of Edinburgh, where Hearts are Protestant, Rangers, patriotic, Great Britain signing up for the First World War, and Hibs have an Irish connection? To what extent is that the dynamic in this Edinburgh derby?
It's not. There's elements to it. Without getting myself in trouble or going down a slippery slope. There is elements to it, and I think it's both sets of fans kind of play up in it. You'll see Edinburgh derbies. Hibs fans will have the tricolour, and Hearts fans will have the Union Jack. And at times there is that. There's fans who feel to be in one of the two camps. At times it can maybe be performative, but it's not as intense as Celtic and Rangers. That's probably the best way to put it, and it's not filled with as much hatred as Celtic and Rangers. But yes, there's definitely elements of Hibs with their Irish background and Hearts with their that kind of patriotism that you talked about. It should be noted that when the players did enlist in McRae's battalion, there were some back in 1914. There were some from Hibs, there were some from Dunfermline, Falkirk, and other clubs as well.
Yeah, and so in steps Tony Bloom. What difference does he make? And also, did you not know who he was when he stepped in?
Yeah, so to take the second part of that, I think everyone kind of knew what he had done. I think mainly more so with Brighton, but then when his name was linked with Hearts, there was interest from Tony Bloom in Hearts. A lot of people started to look at Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium because I thought they were probably the more comparable case with Hearts rather than Brighton. And then in terms of what he's brought to Hearts, he's brought investment. He's invested nearly £10 million, and he's got a 29% stake in the club. It should be noted that Hearts are the largest fan-owned club in the United Kingdom, and they still are. The big part of that was, a key part of his agreement was that his shares are non-voting shares. So Hearts, the foundation of Hearts, who are the majority shareholders, are still the majority shareholders, and they have the majority voting rights as well. And then Tony Bloom coming in has had that investment. There's obviously the partnership with Jamestown Analytics, which Tony Bloom has at other clubs, notably Union Saint-Gilloise and Brighton and Hove Albion. That's been a really key part of it. But one of the biggest things that you can't, it's not tangible in terms of Jamestown and signing players or the investment in Tony, like the money, is the belief and the feeling he's given Hearts fans. I was there when he did a Foundation of Hearts talk or interview in the Gorgie Suite at Tynecastle. It was on the day before Hearts opened the league season against Aberdeen, and he talked about winning the league. He talked about success in Europe. He talked about disrupting the old firm, and everyone in that room, every Hearts fan in that room, were just blown away by it. They're captivated by it, and it's given the club and the fans something to rally behind together. Hearts fans, at times over the number of years, have been divided on a number of issues. It's a very divisive support across a number of elements, but everyone's rallied around Tony Bloom and his belief that Hearts can disrupt the old firm. And he came out and said that Hearts could split the old firm this season, which again, a lot of people were very surprised at or didn't think that could happen. And he talked about winning the league within 10 years. It could come within 1 year, which no one saw coming, but everyone is just enjoying being on this ride.
Still got half of the season to go though.
We do, yeah. There's a lot of big games coming up, but it's gone well so far.
Yeah.
Who do you think have been the best pieces of transfer dealing? Because that's obviously where his model has excelled in the past. Clearly, he saw that model could work in Scottish football, and part of that, is if they work, they're going to be sold on somewhere else.
Yeah.
But who do you think has been the best so far?
So it's interesting because if you looked at the team's best players, most consistent performers, it's actually guys who've been here for the last couple of seasons, with like Lauren Shankland, the captain, the striker, and Cammy Devlin, Australian diminutive midfielder. They've probably been two of the best players this season. Both are currently out injured, but a lot of the squad from last season's been reinvigorated by the manager Derek McInnes when he came in, and Derek McInnes has got so much more from those players who are already here in terms, and then the new players are kind of just added to that. I mentioned Claudio Braga. He's a second top goal scorer. He came from the Norwegian second tier Ailsland. He's played in the Norwegian third tier, the Portuguese third tier. He's been a revelation. He has given the support, like there's been that connection between him and the support. There is the Claudio Braga song, which is to Queen, Radio Gaga. I would urge you to look it up on social media or internet. It's really, really good. And you hear it every game.
All we want is Claudio Braga.
But it goes on for a fair while. It's got a number of verses. And then Alexandros Kizaridis, a Greek winger, he is the type that you mentioned, Tim, where you're going to potentially flip him in the summer. He has been really exciting. Hearts have been crying out for a winger who can create and score, and he's done that. So those two have been brilliant in the final third, giving the team something extra. And then Stuart Finlay, the left-sided centre-back, he was one that kind of Derek McInnes pushed to bring in, and he's been really consistent. And I mentioned the Kazakh international that we signed, been waiting for him for 12 months, and then we spent around 1.8 million pounds on Eduardo Agiu, a Brazilian midfielder who's played in the Portuguese second tier. He's a record-breaking signing. Signed him in August. He's made 3 substitute appearances, so we're still waiting for these guys who were seen to elevate the team. They're still to come in and have an impact, and they should in the final few months of the season.
There is a jeopardy for fans on this multi-club model, though. Tim's mentioned, I suppose, one aspect of transfers and otherwise, and how if you've got any great players, they'll be moved on. But one of the ways, or even before you get to them moving on, they might be moving between the clubs, for better or worse in Hearts' case. So
that was one of the big things that when Tony Bloom approached the club, and there had to be sign-off from the Foundation of Hearts, who are the majority shareholders, and I was in meetings and spoke to people at the club, and that was the big thing they wanted to put across was it was not seen as like a multi-club ownership aspect. All the clubs were seen as different entities, and then it wasn't a case of Hearts were going to sign players or players were going to be signed for Hearts in a way to build them up to then move on to Brighton or then move on to Union Saint-Gilloise. So that's as far as we've seen so far. It's very much each club are in their own entity, and there's not like a movement of players between the clubs. Don't get me wrong, there's a number of Hearts fans who I would like some Brighton players on loan, certainly to help them out in the run-in of the season. But that's something that maybe we'll see in kind of like test the theory in the coming years. But at the moment, it's not been a case of Hearts are a feeder club. That's the word I was looking for. That was one big thing that's been said by the club, is that this isn't a case of Hearts being a feeder club for Brighton.
The flip side of that is the good part about doing it well is that it makes it easier to attract players. And if you gain a reputation for a club where you will be developed, you're going to get playing time. You're going to be developed, and then all right, it works, and then you go on somewhere else for a big fee. So it's kind of win-win. I look at Bournemouth. They've just attracted the player voted as the revelation of the last Brazilian season, and he's gone to Bournemouth. Yeah, because he's done his homework and he sees that Bournemouth will develop him, and then if it works, he'll sell it on. So if Hearts can do that well, then you get a cycle, because for all those going out, you get more promising talent coming in.
Yeah, that's one thing I think the club have found out is that players are really keen to come to Hearts. They're sold on the vision, they're sold on the project. It does help that the fact that the team are doing so well in the league, and there's obviously European football as a carrot at the end of the season or next season. However, I think as part of that, as much as players are wanting to come to Hearts and they see the potential there and what the potential for their own career. On the flip side is the clubs themselves will be harder to deal with, where they'll go, well, Hearts, they see Tony Bloom, they see team top of the league. It's like, okay, we can try and get more from them. Or they can see this is a team that are operating in the same way with like Jamestown. Then they might want to publicise the fact that Hearts are interested in their player to drum off interest from elsewhere and then increase the fee. And that's the big thing. Hearts can't pay the wages, they can't pay the fees that the old firm can. Even with the investment, so they're still shopping in kind of markets which they probably were in the past, but it's just much more focused, and there's more belief that these players can be a success at Hearts.
I don't think there's much competition in the Norwegian second division. You know, I think if you can pick up players in the Norwegian second division, you've more or less got that one to yourself.
Yeah, for now. But if I could end and wind up our podcast today with this more kind of existential question, you kind of answered it in respect to Tim's question just now. But what would it mean for Scottish football in general if Hearts were to do the incredible and achieve the feat of winning the league? What difference would it make? Partly, you know, Tim mentioned their players perhaps being attracted to the Scottish League in general because there's more opportunities now, but otherwise,
I think it would be massive. It would be like a breath of fresh air. For one, the interest that we've kind of spoken about that's been there, for the fact that you've got myself on this podcast to talk about it. There's interest from all around, and it gets more eyes on Scottish football. And I talked about Scottish football for the majority of its history has been a duopoly. In more recent times, it's been a monopoly with Celtic. There's always been frustrations or complaints from fans about the TV deals that Scottish football gets, and having a third team in amongst the title race, that there is more interest. That could help with marketing of the league. That can help with the investment into the league, which would then help other teams be able to increase their budgets and have that snowball effect that could be really good for Scottish football. And also, if Hearts are successful, there's the hope that, and Tony Bloom wants this, that Hearts are successful and do well in Europe. And again, that raises the standard of Scottish football. It raises the quality or the view amongst other players coming into Scottish football, because the better it does, the more competitive it is, the more eyes are on it. Players will see that as an opportunity, and will see it even more of an opportunity to come to Scotland and go, if I'm a success there, then I can get that step to England, just because of the proximity of the two countries. That it's almost like a stepping stone to there. So I think the benefits can be, a number of benefits can come from Hearts being successful and winning the league, and what it could potentially do kind of short, medium and long term.
It reminds me a little bit of the situation in Sao Paulo, you know, which is now Brazil's biggest city, in like the 40s and 50s, because up to that point, that Sao Paulo championship, it's either Palmeiras or it's Corinthians. And the joke became, it's just like flipping a coin. You know, it's either one or the other. And then suddenly you get a third force, which is Sao Paulo. So more formed in the mid-30s, and by the 40s, they're really competitive. And so then the line became, the coin doesn't have to fall either heads or tails. The coin can also fall straight up. You know, you got a third option in there, and it makes everything so much more interesting, I think. So, there's power to Heart of Midlothian.
I mean, I think there'll be a few Motherwell fans who will say we should be considered in the title race as well. They're doing really well in fourth place, and then you could speak to Aberdeen and Hibs fans who are very frustrated because they they believe, like, if they had the season that they would hope for, they would have been up here as well. So yeah, who knows what it could be like in future seasons.
It just reminds them of the fourth force in British politics, which once upon a time was the SDP. And look what happened to them. But as we say in Nigeria, it'll be a rare bricht moonlicht nicht if Hearts win the title. And that's about it from us. Now, honestly, we do say that in Nigeria. At least I said it once when I went there. Joel, it's been an absolutely amazing conversation. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And
no, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And where can people read more from Hearts Standard?
Yeah, so they can get us on YouTube, Hearts Standards. We put up regular videos throughout the week discussing all things Hearts of Midlothian Football Club. And then there's our website, www.heartsstandard.co.uk, which covers the club in depth.
Joel Sked, thank you very much.
Get in touch with the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast on Twitter @BrazilShirtPod, or you can email us BrazilianShirtNamePod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and tell a friend. The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast is an 1129 production.